Hey guys, Christine here. So we need to have a conversation about different homeschooling methods because I am asked at least once a week, if not more, what curriculum should I use? How do I start homeschooling? There's so many options. I'm so overwhelmed. What do I do? So the very first thing that you have to do is to learn what method you use. So that might be a new concept to you because I know for me, when we started homeschooling, I didn't know there were different homeschool methods. I mean, I did realize that different people use different things and that there was different curriculum companies, but I didn't realize that there were actual different homeschooling methods. And knowing what your method is going to help you a lot because then you're able to explore the different curriculums and be able to narrow it down to what's going to best fit your family as opposed to looking to the hundreds of things out there because that can definitely get overwhelming. So the first thing I want to talk about today are the different homeschooling methods, and then from there what you can do to help so that you can get your homeschooling off to a good start. Because I know even though we are in November now, happy November 1st, I hope you guys are already decorating for Christmas because I know we will be next week. We like to combine those holidays together. But even though it's already November, some people are still just starting to homeschool, or they decided to pull their child out of public school and start homeschool, or they had a super crazy beginning to their homeschool. What they're doing isn't working for them, and so they've decided to restart their school year, for lack of a better words. So I want to talk about the different methods with you, and I want to just encourage you guys that you can do this. It does not need to be, sorry, I just knocked over everything on my table. It does not need to be as overwhelming as it appears. Because I know at first glance you see all those curriculum and it's overwhelming. So first off, different types of homeschooling. So the first type of homeschool that I want to talk about is traditional homeschooling. And what traditional homeschooling is basically having school at home. So this may look very similar to what you're going to see at a private school. I may even compare it to a public school, but I really feel like it's more like a private school because a lot of curriculum that you use at home, whether you are a traditional homeschooler or you do have a different method, it's going to be very similar to what you're going to see more in a private school than you would at the public schools, just because the same kind of curriculum companies work for both of them. So this is where you might even have a legit classroom in your home. This is where you may have actual set homeschool hours. You may even have the kind of schedule that looks like a school to where you're doing this subject at this time, this subject at this time, and you're following a pretty rigid schedule. So you may also have a curriculum that lays everything out for you that way, and that does make it super duper convenient. I know a lot of people love box curriculum because it does lay it all out for them. They don't have to question, what do we need to do today? I don't have to come up with anything. They can open and go and do what their curriculum tells them to do. So traditional homeschooling, especially for new homeschoolers, I feel like works really well for them, or at least they feel like this is an easy start for them because it's what they're used to. Especially if you were not homeschooled yourself, you are only used to what you see at a public or a private school. So it makes it easy to start your homeschool out that way because it's what you're used to. It's what you already envision school being. So the next type of homeschool I want to talk about is one that I am not super familiar with because we have not used this, I don't think really at all in our homeschool, and that is the classical method. So the classical approach, some people have heard of classical conversations. That is an organization with the classical method to where they can meet together in co-ops and stuff like that, and they have a lot of information and stuff for you. So if you think classical is best for you, classical conversations is probably a really great place to start because there are a lot of groups and families on there that can help you out like crazy. They're going to help you much more than me because, like I said, we don't have a classical approach. I think I've used a few pieces of curriculum with the classical method, but I haven't stuck to them because obviously we do not have a classical approach at our house. So with this method, without getting into a whole lot of detail, I'm going to be very minimal with this. So bear with me with this. So with the classical, you're going to be looking at having classic literature. So that is a huge part of it is the classic literature, which we do read some classic literature at our home, but that's not, I want more living stuff, more normal, what you would normally read books at our home as opposed to classic literature, just because that's what I like. So if I don't like the classic literature, it's going to be very hard for me to get excited about it with my kiddos. I know some people that is almost all that they read at their house, and I'm a little bit jealous. I kind of wish I liked them a little bit more. But they also like things like learning Greek, learning Latin, because that is the root of a lot of our own language arts. So if you're able to understand that, that helps you understand our own language, and it all ties it together really, really beautifully. So I know everyone who uses the classical method is in love with it, but it's one of those love or hate things. So if they love it, it's because it is perfectly fit for their family, where it is not perfectly fit for my family. So obviously we wouldn't last a day doing the classical method. So like I said, if you want more information, Classical Conversations is the place to go for the classical method. So the next thing is Charlotte Mason. I feel like we are a little bit Charlotte Mason in our house without being completely within inside that method. I kind of don't like labels in a way because we don't fit one method, which I'm going to talk about here in just a minute. But Charlotte Mason is about having not just the mind, but using living methods and using the whole child. So you're going to have real books. Like I said, we love reading just real, what you would find at the store books. We do a lot of nature studies. We do a lot of being in the outdoors. We learning about composers and artists. We just started an artist study, and we honestly have not done a lot of art in our homeschool other than like normal arts and crafts and whatnot. And I'm already in love with this artist study. I will share it with you guys, I promise, because it is really, really awesome. So, but I need to keep it a secret for now. So Charlotte Mason is just doing that whole child education, doing a lot of living learning. So I feel like since we do a lot of road schooling, I feel like that really ties into the Charlotte Mason method as well. So a really great place to look for Charlotte Mason is the Charlotte Mason Education, a homeschooling how-to manual is a really good book. I have it all linked for you. So in the top of this post, I have linked for you these homeschooling methods. You can go there and you can get all this information and the links on there as well. So next, another method is using unit studies. So I'm a fan of unit studies as well, not just Charlotte Mason. We use some unit studies in our house as well. So this is where you can use a unit of study. So let's say you want to learn about Thanksgiving. Sure, we'll use that since Thanksgiving's coming up this month. So with having Thanksgiving, you can tie in all of your learning into that unit of study. So you can have your language art lessons come out of Thanksgiving lessons. You can have your history come out of that. You can have your science come out of that. You can also sometimes even tie math into that kind of stuff. So all of your studies are going around this unit of time or this unit of information or whatever it is, and you're tying all of your subjects into this study. So it's a really neat way to study because it is just tying everything in instead of taking little things here and taking little things there, all of it centered around that. So it's a really, really neat way to learn, and I'm a big fan of doing that every now and again. We don't do that all the time, but especially doing unit studies for just history. We'll do that sometimes too, because you can also do it that way to where you're only doing a history unit study, you're only doing a language unit study, or you're only doing a unit study for your reading. So it can be broken up that way as well. So unit studies are a lot of fun. This is where you're also probably going to find making lap books and having notebooking pages and stuff like that. So look into unit studies. Pinterest is a really good place to find unit study information. So the next one is what we are. We are relaxed, eclectic homeschoolers. And what that means is that we piece together curriculum from all over the place. We do not follow one box curriculum. I have tried over the years to do that, and I've even tried to pull pieces from box curriculum, and none of them have worked very well for us. So we are relaxed in the side that we don't necessarily even use curriculum for all of our subjects. Our history, we do not use a curriculum. My kids are in a science class, but when they're not in science class, we do not use a science curriculum. I like to piece those together myself, and over the years, I've become very relaxed about that and found it very, very easy to do that because I don't feel like you necessarily need a curriculum for every single thing. You can really learn a lot from just having books, from going on field trips, from taking trips, from meeting with people, talking to people. There's so much you can learn out there from not having a curriculum. But we do have curriculum for other things. So we have our math curriculum that we love. We have our language arts that we love. We have our spelling that we love. So I take things from everywhere. I don't take things from just one spot because I don't feel like it always fits our needs when we take it just from that one spot. So that's where that eclectic comes from, is you pull stuff from everywhere. Like I said, we're a little bit Charlotte Mason, we're a little bit into unit studies, so we are just kind of all over the place. So a book that I recommend, which is also on my Homeschool Methods post for you guys, is The Relaxed Art of Eclectic Homeschooling by Amber Oliver. It is free on Kindle Unlimited. I love my Kindle Unlimited because I can go on there and read all these books. And I think it's $9.95 a month or something like that. So I'm able to get all of these books for free on Kindle Unlimited. Well, you know, not free, but cheaper than having to buy separate books all of the time. So last but not least, I want to talk about unschooling. So I would not call us unschoolers, even though I say we don't use curriculum for some things, even though I say that we like to do real life experiences. We are not unschoolers because we do follow some curriculum. And I don't leave stuff up to my kids. Sometimes I may give them options as far as, okay, we're done doing this in history. What do you want to learn about next in history? Or what do you want to talk about in science? I might do that. But other than that, I mean, I make them sit down with their math whether they want to or not. And I make them do their spelling whether they want to or not. Because that's something that I just personally want my kids to do. So we are not unschoolers. I have had some people try to say we kind of are, but I feel, so there are different definitions of what unschooling is. So first of all, they are not people who do nothing, because there is that misconception with unschoolers that some people say, well, unschoolers just don't do anything, which is so not true. The unschooling families I know do so much. It's just not necessarily with curriculum. A lot of times they will go off of their child's interests. So sometimes they may just simply have their children choose what they want to learn, or they may take what they know their children's interests are and run with it and present them with situations. So if your child loves engineering, you can focus on engineering and STEM and all that kind of stuff, and that they're going to naturally learn language skills and naturally learn math skills by doing their engineering projects. Or you have a child who loves nature. So again, they're going to be doing nature studies, and they're going to be going out places, learning about it, talking to people, being out in nature, doing things that way. But again, that they're going to naturally learn while they're out doing that in the other subjects. And that they also naturally learn in the everyday, so that they're going to naturally learn math by being out at the grocery store, which that might sound kind of corny, like, okay, well, what if they're 8th graders? They need to be above adding, subtracting. It's real life lessons though, and so they are still going to pull upper mathematics just from their everyday lives. So unschoolers, I feel like they get a bad rap. I have a lot of really good unschooler friends who their children are getting accepted into really great colleges, even though they haven't done formal curriculum ever, or if they have done it before, it's been years and years since they've done it, because their children are able to pull those interests and really run with them, and still are able to learn about geometry and about language art stuff, because it's just coming up. They're reading literature. They're out there in the world. They're doing things. They're not just sitting at home playing video games. And I think that that's what some people think that unschooling is. So those are, make sure I'm not missing any, those are the main methods of homeschooling. So you can go on there, click on all of the different links that I give you so that you can get an idea of just more in depth than what I gave you, because I obviously can't talk forever about all of these different methods. So the other thing with starting homeschooling, first of all, you need to know your state's laws. That is really important because different states have drastically different laws. So some states don't require you to do anything as a homeschooler. You do not have to register with the state. You do not have to turn anything into anybody. It's really nobody's business if you homeschool. So the state that we're in North Carolina, so we do have to register with our state. We just have to have a school name. I have to have a high school diploma that I have to turn in and show them that, yes, I am a high school graduate. We have to do testing. My son has to do testing at the end of every year. I think it's once you start 7 years old is when you have to start doing that testing. We do not have to turn that into anyone. We could actually just keep it, and in case we're audited, we have to then turn in just the results, not the full test themselves. And then we also have to keep attendance. So it's just a check mark. Yes, we did school that day, or leaving it blank if we did not do school that day. So it is very minimal, I feel, compared to a lot of states. And then there are other states where you have to actually meet with people in the local school district and give them what curriculum you are using. What are your plans for this year? Turn in a portfolio at the end of the year. So it is a lot more government oversight in some states. So it's very important for you. You can go on HSLDA's website and you can go, which is the Homeschool Legal Defense Association. Great organization. I highly recommend any independent homeschooler to be a member, because if something were to happen with your state, especially if you're in one of those states that are a little bit more strict with their homeschool laws, then you're able, if anything were to happen and they were to audit you and say you didn't do this or this how you're supposed to, then that's where you have their legal help behind you. And so that's their only job at HSLDA, is to legally help homeschool families. So even if someone from the state were to knock on your door and say, I need to come in your house, you can call HSLDA and say, what are my rights as a homeschool parent in this state? What do I have to do? What do I actually have to give them? So that you're not giving more than what your state is required for you to give. So another thing is find a homeschool community. So this has been the biggest thing for me. So over the years, I have always been a part of a homeschool community in 3 different cities and 2 different states. And so having a homeschool community has been humongous, because if I have a question about a curriculum, I can normally find someone who has used it. I am borrowing curriculum from friends now who I've met through our homeschool community. I have given advice to people who are starting at our local homeschool group. I have had people give me advice when I have no idea what I'm doing at our local homeschool group. So finding other homeschoolers is amazing. A lot of times you can get your hands on curriculum before buying it. You can just get that encouragement. Your friends can have other homeschooling friends. It is pretty awesome. Another thing you can do is attend a homeschool conference. So I will admit, I have never been to a homeschool conference. Actually, that's not true. I've been to an online homeschool conference. I've never been to an in-person homeschool conference, and I plan to make that change in 2019. I want to attend at least 1, if not 2 or 3 homeschool conferences, because honestly, I want to be a part of homeschool conferences. I want to be surrounded by other homeschoolers. I want to hear the amazing speakers that they have, and I want to one day be a speaker at a homeschool conference. So I just want to be a homeschool conference junkie, and so that's something that I am planning to do for next year. Another thing you can do is to set a budget for a curriculum. So I just actually made a post 2 weeks ago about how to be able to afford homeschooling. So I can actually post that one for you guys in the comments. I forgot about that there. And budgeting for it to make sure that when you're starting to homeschool that it doesn't feel overwhelming cost-wise, because it can be very expensive to start homeschooling. It can be several $100s depending on the curriculum that you are choosing. And sometimes you have to drop that all at once. Other times it's something you can spread out more throughout the school year. So just setting that budget to make sure that that is not what's overwhelming you as the cost, because there are a lot of free resources out there. There's even a lot of free curriculum out there. It's all depending on what kind of style you want for your homeschool. So the last thing is just have confidence. You can absolutely homeschool your kids. Don't feel overwhelmed, even with all of the choices out there. Don't feel discouraged like you can't do it, especially if it's your first time homeschooling and your children have been in a brick and mortar school before this. There's something called deschooling, to where sometimes you need to just take time off from school altogether to get them out of their habits from school and into the new habits of home. So don't go from brick and mortar school to homeschool full schedule within a weekend for a break. Make sure that you're able to ease them into the homeschooling, because it is a lot different being at home compared to being in a brick and mortar school. Because I know I've had a rough seasons, like an entire school year, where the whole school year just felt like it was falling apart. And then this school year so far has been really, really great. So if you're having one of those really bad school years, don't feel like it's because you are a homeschool failure, because you're not. It is just sometimes just being a parent is just really difficult. And obviously when you're homeschooling, you're running that over into your school time. So a lot of times it is just parenting struggles and not so much just home struggles. And I know it can be really tempting to have that free time during the day where you can just send your children off. You have that time to yourself. You only see them in the evenings and the weekends, and you're able to feel a little bit more human and a little bit less mom all the time. I get it, because my kids have never been in school. So I've only had them home now for over 10 years with 0 breaks, basically. Especially with my husband being in the military, there's sometimes where I literally get 0 breaks for months at a time because I don't have another adult here all the time to help me with it. So I get it. It can be a lot, but again, it is a parenting thing. I don't necessarily feel like it's a school issue. So find those ways. You can get those breaks from your kids, whether it's just going grocery shopping by yourself while the neighbor watches them. Maybe you can trade off babysitting with another homeschool parent. Whatever you can do to have those little breaks, I know that can really, really help. So I hope that this helps you guys, especially those of you who are trying to decide what method works best for you. That's always the first start that I tell people to go to when they consider what they want to do, what curriculum they want to change, anything like that. Go back to those homeschool methods and see which ones you think will work best for you. And again, those may change over the years too. So don't feel discouraged if all of a sudden you're feeling like, okay, we've been very classical this whole time, but now it's no longer working for my son, or now it's no longer working for my daughter. Why isn't it working anymore? Because they change. I know I've changed in the past couple of years. I know my kids for sure have changed in the past couple of years. So it's very natural and normal to have to switch things up, switch brands, switch complete methods altogether, just because people change and learning styles change. So be open to that change and don't let it discourage you. Follow me on my Relaxed Homeschoolers group. Even if you don't feel like you are a labeled relaxed homeschooler, it is a great group of ladies on there that we're all very encouraging to each other, giving each other ideas. I post a lot of my stuff on there, and I just really love to see you guys over there. So Relaxed Homeschoolers on Facebook. I'll see you guys over there, and I will see you next time.